Hey guys, Zack here, and this is my review of Danny Fenton. Okay, so this episode, Pirate Radio, marks the return of a villain we've seen before alongside a villain we haven't. So, that winds up being the big twist of the episode. But, yeah, in any case, the episode opens up with Sam, Tucker, and Danny hanging out on Danny's roof. And they're trying to listen to music. But they quickly discover that there's only like one radio station for whatever reason, because there's literally nothing to listen to. It's literally one song that is, that's the twist of it, but it's a song that's familiar. We know what song, we've heard this song before, but it's a different version of a song we've heard before. But in case, as they're remarking that they're bored and have nothing to do, they're suddenly swarmed by ghost pirates. A massive pirate ship suddenly appears out of nowhere. And it's led by someone by this little kid named Youngblood, who, of course, is this small little, kid-like character. He's very small, very tiny, and when we find out is that apparently he is not up on top of his, pirate lingo. So he has an assistant who appears and is obvious and helps him out with that, and that winds up being a recurring bit throughout the entire episode. But in any case, Danny immediately transforms into his ghost mode to try and fight off the ghost pirates, wondering who invited the kid. But at this point where Youngblood then proceeds to transform his claw hand into a weapon to knock Danny against the wall and blast him away. Telling him to not call him a kid. At which point he then tells his quote unquote skeleton crew to swarm, and the skeleton crew then proceeds to not only attack Danny's house, but steal his ghost shield generator from his dad's roof, which of course he notes is very he immediately complains and tries to get it back, pointing out that that's not theirs to steal. But they quickly just blast him away anyway, and then get back on their pirate ship and leave. And of course, at this point where Danny is frustrated because he notes that Sam clearly has a fiery, sarcastic look on her face, and she then proceeds to joke about him being defeated by a little kid, which of course he points out is not he could be a little bit more sympathetic, but like Tucker is. But then we discover that Tucker is giggling to himself because as we find out, Youngblood said, the way Youngblood referred to it is, "We got booty, so please," which Tucker found hilarious. But in any case, the next day he's discovering that his parents have started, and Jazz of course as well, but specifically his parents have started listening to this radio station, which it's essentially the radio station we heard in the start of the episode, and it's this easy listening to song, which Danny adamantly tries to ask them to change, but they of course completely deny his request, pointing out that he should just get used to the kind of music that's listening to, which of course Danny becomes frustrated about, and does point out that he's ultimately late for school and going to be late for school anyway, so he leaves when he realizes his parents are not going to change the radio station. And he then proceeds to go to the school where he discovers that Mr. Lancer also likes the new music, which of course winds up becoming a huge problem, because Danny came to school to get away from the music, but discovers that it's everywhere, and Sam and Tucker do note that it's everywhere, which of course they note is weird, and Danny also notes it's weird. But it's at this point where Mr. Lancer reveals that since he's since gotten into music and understands music and now likes music, he then suggests that there's going to be open tryouts for a new DJ for the school, which Danny, of course, immediately takes the opportunity to do so, pointing out that it could be an opportunity for him to get this whole situation with the music resolved. But Dash kind of mocks him a little bit, pointing out that he doesn't think Danny is cut out to be a DJ. And Danny, of course, decides to try and prove him wrong by immediately getting into the booth and asks them what they want. And he's trying to get them to say good music, but they clearly do not want to listen to him. So, and eventually Dash takes over and and reveals that he can actually get to work, which much to Danny's frustration and chagrin. But in case shortly after Danny realizes he's not cut out for, musical tryouts, it's at this point where Youngblood and his pirates suddenly appear and start raiding the gym of its exercise equipment. Which, of course, Danny points out that equipment's not under warranty and uses his ghost powers to once again try and fend them off. Telling them that they can't just steal whatever's in theirs. But Youngblood points out that that's kind of the point because, they're pirates. They can do whatever they want. At which point he shoots his claw hand to pin Danny to the wall, and Danny is kind of helpless to stop them as they proceed to successfully steal a lot of the treadmills and other exercise equipment from the gym, much to Danny's frustration, pointing out that he's really obviously not happy about the fact that he's lost to Youngblood twice now. But in case with that, Danny and his friends proceed to go home, with Danny still being frustrated while also trying to figure out what exactly is going on. But and of course it's at this point where Sam and Tucker, having learned that music is apparently very popular now, do decide that in order to best combat against the situation, to combat against the newfangled music. And there's a really funny gag of some adults chasing after a truck playing the music, while the same way a bunch of kids are chasing after ice cream, which is a visual they go with. But they go. But that's at this point where Sam points out that maybe the best way to combat the music is to start their own radio station and maybe overpower the signal a little bit. And of course, but it's at this point where Danny does wonder where they're supposed to find a location to, turn into a radio station. At which point, Sam suggests that they use the emergency ops center for it on top of Danny's house. When I picture Danny's house, the big metal structure on top of the roof, that thing. Of course, Danny points out that he doesn't think that his parents will go for it, but Tucker points out that it couldn't hurt to ask. So when Danny comes into the house, he immediately hollers out to his family, asking if he can use the emergency ops center as a radio station, but quickly discovers that his parents are nowhere to be found, and instead he finds a brochure telling him that they went on a cruise and that they'll be back shortly, which of course Danny notes is weird, but also points out that if they're not, but also since Sam realizes that Danny's parents aren't home, realizes that that's the perfect opportunity to go into the emergency ops center and kind of take it over as a radio station. And sure enough, they go inside, and the emergency ops center is about what you would expect. It's got a lot of technology and equipment and other things in it that are kind of important for ghost monitoring and stuff like that. It's full of his equipment, but additionally to that, much to Sam's glee, there's a turntable inside the emergency ops center, which she reveals that she can in fact use to play music. So she's pretty excited about that. But in any case, as Sam kind of sets up her radio station inside the emergency ops center, we discover that apparently it's not just Danny's parents who were abducted and disappeared. As we find out, most everybody got a weird pamphlet along with a note saying that the parents had left on an emergency cruise. So, of course, this causes Danny to become a little confused as to what's going on. But he doesn't. And of course, Tucker asks Danny if he's gotten any hints as to where his parents might have gone. But Danny responds that no, he hasn't. He's just pulled out he just reveals that they just left a pamphlet for Ember's back tours, which of course he doesn't fully understand. But it's at this point where Sam proceeds to reveal that she's ultimately found a name for the new radio station that she wants to start, which is essentially abbreviated to Party, which of course she's very but of course Danny is a little bit frustrated because obviously he doesn't think that they're taking this whole situation seriously, and also points out that they've already got a name, that them having a name for the radio station is obviously very weird. So but of course he immediately takes the flyer from her and throws it out, pointing out that they've got more important things to worry about, such as what Youngblood is planning, and they proceed to leave, unaware that Dash and Quan have found the flyer in the trash, and realizing that there's going to be a party at Danny's place, decide to rally all of their friends and crash it. So yeah, unfortunately, Danny winds up having a raging party in his house at one point, and Danny is on the wiser. So I guess it is at this point where Danny proceeds to look around, trying to see if he can find any evidence of a cruise ship, and sure enough, he finds one, and quickly discovers that everybody's parents are on it, which is weird, and they also seem like they're in some sort of dazed look. So Danny tries to board the ship using his ghost form, but quickly discovers that there's a ghost shield around it. And it's at this point where Danny finally discovers what's going on. And of course, Youngblood and his assistant do confront Danny, and Youngblood of course points out that obviously the point was that he uses it to defend it against Danny so that he can't get onto his boat and keep it safe from ghosts and other things so that they can't get out. But he also at this point points out that that ultimately his end goal was to just kidnap all the parents. But before he can kind of fully take off with his ship, and as the last of the people started boarding, they quickly discover that their ship is no longer resembling a cruise ship and is now finally resembling more along the lines of Youngblood's pirate ship. And Youngblood, quickly realizing that somebody must be jamming their signal, realizes they need to get out of there, and has his pirates load the cannons. And Danny is a little surprised, pointing at how quickly his Youngblood's pirates are following orders, pointing out that he couldn't get anybody in a crowded gymnasium to do that. But Youngblood points out that he just needs to know the right thing to say, and then proceeds to give him a demonstration of that by ordering his pirates to fire on Danny, and successfully does. And with that, Danny is unable to save any of the parents who suddenly disappear on Youngblood's cruise ship, pirate ship. And of course, Danny, frustrated that he wasn't able to save anybody, then goes back to his house to discover the raging party with all the popular kids in his house. And of course, Danny is frustrated, not because there was a party and he wasn't invited, but he draws the line at it being in his own house and not being invited. So of course, he immediately barges up to the emergency ops center, and immediately tells Sam and Tucker about what's going on, about how there's a raging party downstairs and it's gotten out of control. And they're a little surprised about the fact that there's a party downstairs, but he immediately tells them that they need to break it off because obviously it's causing problems for him and for his entire house. And of course, Sam points out that it's fine and that it's all just harmless fun, and then proceeds to use the silent listening jams that she's been using to, as a scratching thing. And in the process, Danny discovers something weird about the audio on the disc and asks Sam to play it back slowly. At which point, Sam proceeds to scratch it back again, and then discover a subliminal message that says, "Leave your kids, come to the cruise." And of course, Danny points out that it seems to be some sort of mind control thing involving music, which Tucker notes sounds familiar. And it's at this point where we discover why it sounds familiar. As it turns out, that the emergency ops center is suddenly attacked, and then they go outside to discover Youngblood's cruise ship, but also discovers that Ember is the one leading it, and remarks that she's back and ready to rock. And of course, it's at this point where she makes another blast of her music, which knocks everybody off their feet. And it's at this point where Sam discovers the pamphlet that Danny had been holding, and finally looking at it a little bit more closely, she then discovers that it literally just says Ember's back, and that it literally would have just jumped out and bit him if it was any more obvious. And Tucker just responds that they really need to pay attention more. But in case it is at this point where Danny proceeds to take on his ghost form and goes to confront Ember and Youngblood, and then proceeds to ask them what exactly it is their end goal is, and why Ember decided to deal with as he puts it, decides to side with little short stack. But and to this point where Ember points out that she and Youngblood essentially became fast friends because they both have a very low opinion of adults. And Ember points out that their end goals ultimately align. Ember uses her mind control to put all of the adults of Amity Park under Youngblood's control so that he can use them to power his fleet of ghost ships, while she proceeds to take advantage of the fact that there are no longer any adults to take over the world and, to essentially do what she initially planned in her original episode, to use music to make herself more powerful and take over the world that way. But of course she then proceeds to reveal that the main snag in her plan at this point is that obviously Sam's new radio station has blocked her signal, and she is there to take care of the problem. And at which point she fires off another blast from her guitar to disorient everybody. But of course this in the process causes Sam to accidentally land on the turntable and accidentally scratch the record, which caused a massive blast to come out of the speakers that pushes the ghost ship away from the emergency ops center. And this of course causes Danny to realize that whatever Sam did, that she needs to do it again, because it seems to be their only defense against the ghost ship. And sure enough, Sam does it again and again, blasts the ship away and pushes it away from the emergency ops center. And of course, now realizing that they can't just take out the emergency ops center, Youngblood's assistant suggests that they are unfortunately just forced to do it the old-fashioned way and pointing out that they are pirates. At which point he rallies Youngblood's crew to go and kidnap as many parents as they can, because they can't get any more parents because of the blocked radio signal. So, and of course, all of the kids who are currently partying in Danny's house come out and discover that their parents are being kidnapped and can't really seem to do anything about it. And it's at this point where Danny, realizing that he's probably the only one who can stop this, then proceeds to pull out a megaphone and rallies them to kind of work with him to get their parents back. And of course Dash insists why anybody would want to follow Danny. So Danny proceeds to sarcastically remark that they can always follow the other kid that comes from a family of ghost hunters who have all the equipment they need to deal with the threat at hand. And with that, Dash immediately falls in line, and pointing out that there doesn't seem to be any takers. He then points out that they're either with him or against him, and asks him if they're with him to actually take out to get their families back. And of course, everybody immediately rallies with Danny, and Sam wonders how exactly it was he was able to do that. And Danny just remarks that they just need to know the right things to say. At which point he proceeds to put his plan into action. He proceeds to tell Paulina, because she's good with makeup, that his end goal is to get one of them to infiltrate the ghost ship and and disable its defenses from the inside. And so she instructs her to doll up Tucker to look like an adult so that he can sneak on board the ship. And she remarks that she'll do it, but also points out that doesn't change the fact that Danny has no shot with her, which he points out duly noted. At which point he proceeds to hand Quan a ghost weapon, telling him that currently Sam is the only defense they have against the ghost ship, and Quan's job is to keep Sam safe. So it's something that Quan happily takes its stride and immediately runs into the emergency ops center to go and protect Sam. Meanwhile, he tells Dash that he and the rest of the kids are going to be fighting with him alongside of him to get on board the ship, and rallies and points out that they're going to have to fight against the ghost pirates the old-fashioned way, and just board the ship once Tucker is able to get them inside. And of course, it is at this point where Danny now needs to figure out how to actually activate the emergency ops center so that they can go and take the fight to the ghost pirates. And pointing out that obviously his dad was the one who designed it, so he needs to think like his dad. He needs to figure out where exactly it is that he could potentially hide the ghost ship, that he could potentially hide the controls for the emergency ops center so that he wouldn't forget them. And then realizes exactly where. As it turns out, Danny's fridge is rigged to activate the emergency ops center, because which he remarks is right next to the hand, that the controls are right next to the hand. And sure enough, he presses the button on the inside of the fridge, and an alarm blares that the emergency ops center has been activated, and then also remarks that to throw out the ham because it's spoiled. And it's at this point where the emergency ops center detaches from the roof of Danny's house and turns into the Fenton Blip, which is, as the name implies, is this massive airship that is designed to fly through the air. And with Sam remarking that this is clear that the ops that now Danny's father is only the second biggest blimp in the family, which is, a bit of a funny weight joke, but it's kind of, it's a weight joke. Let's be perfectly honest. It's either hit or miss depending on who you are. But in any case with that, they then proceed to chase after the ghost ship, while Tucker proceeds to make a big play of him being an adult, complaining about the newfangled music, and Youngblood, thinking that they quote-unquote missed one, does send his ghost powers to kidnap Tucker, which with Danny remarking that they've taken the bait and now they can successfully mount their attack on the ghost ship. And of course, Tucker is immediately brought into the lower decks, where we discover that the parents are kept under by Ember's slow listening song of "You Will Remember," which and while Tucker's placed against it, and since he's not an adult, it doesn't work. The music doesn't work on him. Although it also is implied that you have to have an adult mindset for it to work as well, since Jazz is also under its spell and is not an adult. But in any case, Tucker tries to immediately recognizes his parents and tries to call to them to get them to try and get them to snap out of it, pointing out that they're under some sort of spell. But his parents aren't listening to him, so he realizes he's on his own, and then immediately leaves once nobody is watching him, so that to look for the ghost shield controls, wondering where exactly it is they could possibly be. But ultimately, it's at this point where Ember and Youngblood are celebrating their victory, pointing out that now that they have all the adults under their control, they can easily take over the world with none of the adults being able to interfere. But it's this point where they're warned of enemies approaching, so they immediately look and discover that yes, Danny has rallied a group to take them on, and with Sam using the scratch table to blast the ship, and of course Youngblood declares that they opened fire on it, but Danny discovers that the ship has a shield, that the blimp has a shield mode, which enables the emergency ops center to be mostly fine. So unfortunately, the shots just bounce harmlessly off, and once they're within range, the kids all jump off of the emergency ops center and onto the ghost ship, where they proceed to get ready to fight. And it's at this point where Danny tries to transform into his ghost mode so they can give them a fighting chance, but quickly discovers that because of the ghost shield, he can't. And so he has to continue fighting as Danny Fenton for a bit until Tucker successfully disables it. But in case at this point where Dash proceeds to rally his fellow kids to fight back against the ghosts who have taken their parents, and with Danny ultimately fighting alongside of him. And Dash admits that he does have a bit of a higher opinion of Danny because of this, pointing out that even though he's probably still gonna wail on him, he admits that when it inevitably does pick on Danny again, he'll be picking on a hero, which Danny is kind of confused as to what the sentiment is supposed to be, but does thank Dash regardless. But in case at this point where all the kids continue to fight and to face off against them using various one-off Fenton gadgets, but of course it's at this point where Ember decides that she's had enough and traps them all within a giant, spectral bubble. At which point she grabs Danny and forces him over the side, and proceeds to make, and she and Youngblood proceed to make him try and walk the plank. And of course they do successfully push Danny off of the plank, but right as he's about to fall, Tucker is successfully able to disable the ghost shield, and it's at this point where obviously Ember and Youngblood wonder why they didn't hear a splat. At which point they discover that Danny has successfully turned into his ghost mode, and proceeds to fight back against both of them. And Ember, and he also successfully gets Ember's guitar away from her, which she becomes very angry about, and then proceeds to pull off her pirate hat and tries to use her flaming hair to attack Danny with. But in the process, she accidentally sets the mast of the ghost ship on fire, and realizing that probably wasn't the best idea, then decides to turn tail and leave because she's realized she's made more of a mess than she should have. And now alone, Youngblood then turns his attention to Danny, and they proceed to sword fight on top of the pirate mast. And after Youngblood is quickly surrounded by fire, and Danny realizes he's not going anywhere. He then proceeds to free the rest of the kids, remarking that Danny unfortunately fell. Well, quote unquote, Danny unfortunately fell. But he does remark that he's safe, he's fine, and also then proceeds to be his own wingman by remarking that that Danny is kind of cool and that they should all consider hanging out with him more. But it's at this point where all the kids proceed to rescue their parents, and Danny, realizing the ghost ship is going down after Youngblood discovers that none of the parents are powering the ship anymore. Danny proceeds to tell everybody to huddle close, with Paulina, of course, being the first, remarking that she'd be more than happy to snuggle up against what she considers to be her boo. But at which point he remarks that she should really consider wrap her head around the name Paulina Fenton. And of course, at this point where all of the kids and parents proceed to grab onto him, and he uses his ghost powers to turn them all intangible so that they just float to safety while the ghost ship proceeds to crash into the ocean. And with everybody now safe, Danny remarks that everything seems to be fine, although he then proceeds to transform back into his ghost mode, and pointing out that he's sorry he fell overboard. He remarks that he hopes everybody's okay. At which point Dash pops him on because, according to himself, Danny abandoned them, which is a fair complaint. He points out, obviously it wasn't entirely Danny's fault. He was forced to walk the plank, and obviously, as far as they know, fell overboard. They don't know, because they don't know that Danny Fenton and Danny Phantom are the same person yet. As far as they know, he fell overboard and wasn't able to fight with them anymore, and sent Danny Phantom to go rescue them. That's as far as they know. But of course, Dash points out that is the last time they're going to follow him, and immediately, leave. But meanwhile, Jack is very happy about the situation, pointing out that the cruise kind of sucked, but also notes all the similar jumpsuits all the kids are wearing. And it's at this point where he proceeds to ask Danny if he used the emergency ops center while they were gone. And Danny tries to deny it, but then Sam and Quan show up in the ops center and thank Danny for labeling them to use it, which of course gets Danny in a lot of trouble when Sam kind of realizes that she got Danny in trouble. But in any case, while Danny was able to save everybody from Youngblood and Ember, he is unfortunately grounded for a month because he used the ops center without permission. So unfortunately he now has to clean up after the party, and he's not allowed to have any more parties for at least a while. Even though, again, wasn't entirely Danny's fault, but as far as his parents know, it kind of was his fault because he used the ops center without asking. Even though he tried to ask, they just weren't home. But in case Sam is just happy that everything is back to normal. But then notes that Youngblood didn't leave the ship like everybody else and wonders what happened. At which point Tucker remarks that he actually reversed the polarity of the ghost shield to keep ghosts in, so that they can't escape. To keep him in so that they can't escape using his PDA, and remarks that they probably won't be going anywhere for quite a while. At which point we then see Youngblood and his assistant arguing back and forth about the fact that they're trapped, and obviously Youngblood's assistant snaps at him, telling him to keep it down. But in any case, and that's how the episode ends. So overall, pretty fun episode. I do like this episode because, you know, I do like how it hints to the fact that Ember is going to be is kind of the twist villain of the episode, which, you know, it's obvious when you realize that that's what they're going with. But it's also fun, and I do like the idea that Danny kind of becomes a leader in this episode, because obviously this is a threat that affects all of Amity Park and everybody's parents. So obviously they are that obviously means that they now have to do something to, you know, rally. He needs to rally his fellow kids against the Ghost Pirates. I do kind of like that. But, and I also like that we finally note that the Up Sender finally has a use, because up until this point, it has just been there. It has not done anything. It has just been this massive structure with seemingly no purpose. So now we finally know what it does. It is a mobile fortress designed to go and fight ghosts when, you know, the going gets tough and they need to do that. So, you know, I kind of like that. That's a cool little idea. But, in any case, that is going to do it for my review of Danny Phantom. What did you guys think? Let's get a discussion in the comment section down below, or over on my Discord server, link in the description. Also, be sure to go and check out my Patreon if you want to help support me. I would appreciate that. And again, go check out my Discord again, because we are going to be doing a horror movie watch-along thing at the end of the month for Halloween weekend. So please go check that out. I would appreciate that. Also be sure to go check out my Twitter to a lesser extent. Elon, again, broke it because this morning, as I was recording this, I found out that Elon kind of messed it up so that we can't actually read tweets anymore. I don't know how he did that, but he did. So, yeah. If you want to follow me over there, maybe, but go follow me over. Go check out my Discord and go join the Discord, because a lot of you don't yet. So please go do that. Also, finally, if you want to see more content from me, then check out the playlist, link in the end screen. The top playlist is the most recent playlist, which was Megas Month. That is what I did for my birthday last year. I would appreciate it if you were to check that out, because it's Megas Month. It's Megas XLR, which is a fun little American mecha series. I liked it. I like it a lot. It's a show I watched as a kid, and then it disappeared because Cartoon Network kind of dropped the ball at the time, but you know, that's a thing. And also be sure to go and check out Courage Month, because that was a bit more in line with what I did here. It is ultimately a story about a dog who defends his home from various supernatural threats. And it is a fun series because it's got a lot of dark humor in it. But in any case, yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. And until next time, I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace!